Um, so, like I say, as I said to Carl, back in step one, you'd have done a business model canvas with the assistance of your coach. In step three, we're going to leave that with you to start with, to work it through, to do that deep thinking yourself this time, to think about the 9 relative boxes within the business model canvas that actually all play together as a link. They don't sit in isolation. They are all considered to basically say, okay, well, how do we take the different aspects that pull together? Now, I'm going to talk through that in a little bit more detail. Now, first of all, just to talk about the tools that we have within step three. Um, you are going to do your competitor analysis, and your competitor analysis is going to help you think about your customer segments that you're working in. It's going to help you to think about your key activities within the business, your key systems that you might be using in the business, to say, okay, well, how can we be the best that we can be for our customers? How can we be the best solution for our customers' pain, problem, fear, want, need, or desire? We then, after the competitor analysis, we would then be looking at the business model canvas tools booklet. And within there, there's 3 different elements. We look at your avatars. So again, that's looking at the customer segments, top right-hand corner of your business model canvas. We're looking at your value proposition, top left box of your business model canvas. And then we're also looking at an elements of your pricing. So yes, you'd have looked at your pricing with Goopy in step 2 and looked at your average order values that you're aiming for, but we might be then exploring with your coaches, maybe your pricing models, for example, or how you're getting paid. And that's going to basically then look at your box along the bottom there, your revenue streams, your pricing model from there. So we are working through tools within the first initial steps of step 3 to help you build this new Dawn business model canvas. Now, with the new Dawn business model canvas, what we're then going to do is, once we've got that completed, we're going to make a comparison against that legacy version. So the business you brought into Masterplan that you wanted to improve, what does that look like in terms of the pathway going forward, our new Dawn version of the business model canvas? And that then forms your strategic plan. What's the differences between the two? Which of the 9 boxes need to change? Is it all 9 boxes, or is it just a few of the boxes? What actions do we need to take to change those? And who's going to take responsibility for them by when? And then that starts to create your strategic plan. So we're not going to create a strategic plan which is like 40 million pages deep business plan. It's going to be a 1-page, 2-page document that gets you really focused on the activities you need to take forward. Now, if I was to say, okay, well, let's link all these boxes together. Like I say, the first box up there is that value proposition. And this is just a high level overview of how I position the business model canvas to my clients and, like I say, the students I work with, the scale up programs. The first box there is your value proposition. What is it that's unique about you? What is it that creates your differentiator in the marketplace? And therefore, what is your value that you're taking to market? Why were people likely to lean towards you with interest rather than your competitors? Why are they going to spend their pound with you rather than spend their pound elsewhere? So again, why is it that you're going to be the ideal solution for those prospects? The box then wrapped around that is then how you deliver your promise. So in your value proposition, you've gone out to market with a promise. This is now the blue boxes are all about delivering that promise. So what are your key activities? What is it that you're doing to generate your revenue, to keep your customers satisfied? What key resources do you have? So they're your internal resources. Often, like it'd be your staff, your PAYE resources. It might be your intellectual property. It might be your systems or processes. It could be your cash in the business that you have to position your business in a different way. And I always say that you're looking at your key resources to be in an area whereby, it's not very easy to replicate your business. I'm sure I'm going to refer to a bit tongue in cheek to Dragon's Den, but you hear it quite often. Peter Jones is very famous for saying it, is that why would I give you 100,000 for 10% of your business where I could spend 100,000 just to replicate that business myself and have 100% of it? So again, how easy are your key resources to replicate? Then you've got your key partners. So those are those that are external to your business. The key partners could be your supply chain, it could be your logistics, it could be your subcontractors, your advisors. And then you've got your key systems, the key systems you're using within your business. And then you're looking at your cost structure. So cost structure being the biggest box there, because we're saying, okay, well, if you can keep your business as lean as possible by considering the activities that you do and how you resource that with internal or external resources or partners and the systems that you use, if we can keep that lean, our break even is less, and we can got a greater chance of making the profits and the numbers that we need to hit our terms. The bit that's wrapped around the outside now in yellow is about how we now take our value out to market to attract the customers that we want. So we've got our value proposition in the green there. Now we're going to ideally take it out to our customer segments that we identify here. We're going to identify the channels that are most appropriate to get to those people. And then we can actually identify the revenue channels, or sorry, the revenue streams that are fit for purpose for the product or the solution that we're taking out to market. So in the customer relationships and the customer segments, like I said earlier, is your avatars. Who's your ideal customer or customers that you're trying to attract towards you. The relationships that you're creating are the different steps of the relationship along the way, in terms of saying, okay, well, at different parts of my customer or prospect journey, my relationship changes. So when you're doing your marketing, you're in the awareness stage of the customer journey with people, they're often skeptical. They're not leaning towards you, they're leaning away from you. So what relationship and how do you build a relationship with them to pull them towards you with interest? You then, in the customer journey, a prospect journey, you take them into the awareness stage, which is really your sales process, where the relationship changes slightly. So how do you change that relationship with your customer? How do you maximize that relationship? Because it changes again when you go into the purchase stage. And then it changes again when you go into the advocacy and the loyalty stages of the customer journey, which is beyond the purchase. So again, you have to be mindful about how that relationship changes. But it's also about how you gather the information from those relationships. So, for example, you may say, okay, are we going to do surveys or net promoter scores so that we can understand how our relationships are evolving and what can we learn from our relationships, that if our customers give us feedback, that then can sharpen our value proposition so we can take an even better value proposition out to market. And once we have some clarity on who our avatars are, and we've got very focused on our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 avatars that we may have to identify that the value proposition might be slightly different for the different customer markets. So, for example, in Will's case, his value proposition for a B2B customer versus his value proposition for a B2C customer would be different. There'd be a key dynamic within that value proposition, but what is really the pain, problem, fear, want, need, or desire of that customer? And also, once we've identified our avatars, we can then fish in the right pond, as I call it. So we can use the correct marketing channels to get to those audiences. I use it really simply with my parents. My parents are in their 80s. They hate digital with a vengeance. They think that they're going to be tripped up every time they go online, or they're going to have their bank account stolen. So they have to be marketed in different ways, and they love being marketed in the amount of times they tell me they've seen an advert in their parish magazine because they're nosy about their parish magazine and what's going on in their local place. But that's where they see their adverts. So again, are you doing your marketing? Are you using the right channels to get to your avatars in the right way? And is it going to shape your revenue streams? Will, you got your hand up there. You got a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. I wasn't sure how whether to interrupt or so I just put my hand up. Structure. So just going back to what you're saying about when we're identifying the value proposition for our B2B customers, do you look at it as like, ultimately, are we looking at the value proposition for the B2B's end customer, or do we look at the value proposition for my customer? So knowing that I'm going to sell it to someone and they're going to sell it to someone else, when I'm looking at my value proposition for B2B, do you think one step ahead and think about their customer, or do you purely think about my customer?
So first and foremost, I said it's about your customer who's spending the pound with you, because that's ultimately you want them to attract them and them to spend the pound with you. If you were talking about the practitioners we were talking about earlier, then selling on to their customer, I think an element of that will be a replication of your own B2C model. So I think you'd be able to say, my B2C model is here. I'm going to help you sell to your customers by using our B2C model. But to get them their interest in the first place, you've got to have a different value proposition link, in terms of, like, say, if a practitioner isn't too bothered about growing their business or making more revenue, it's all about them practicing. What can your value proposition be to help them get that on the agenda, if you like? Because when I go to see my my chiropractor, for example, who does use a massage gun and all that sort of stuff on me, I look around his studio, and he's got a stand for this, a stand for that, a stand for that, and a stand for that. And I go, crikey, there's just so much information there, and I
Yeah,
don't engage with any of it. Whereas if I can get into a conversation with him about one of them, then he often sells that to me. So again, how do you make it easier from your value proposition for the B2B customer to say, okay, well, I
mm,
engage it. I know it's a product that I can use and it'd be better for my customers. Is that really the be all and end all, the value proposition to get them engaged in the first place? Or is it then about their upsells and therefore you can help them sell to the B2C?
perfect. Okay, that will make
That help?
sense. Yep,
Yep.
yep, definitely. That's good.
So,
Sounds like I need to add PTs and chiropractors to my target list.
well, and again, this is all part of step three, really, in terms of,
Yeah,
as you've identified with Goopy and Martin's piece on, if you did the Blue Ocean core, is predominantly saying, okay, well, you know, we're trying to make our business as easy as possible to run, and we've got a gross margin value that we need to hit, which we may argue is fixed because the numbers are below that are fixed costs, and our terms number is hopefully not negotiable. So how do we make it easier to get to that gross profit value? And is that by the different levers we can pull? Number of customers, average order value, reducing our margin, reducing our cost of sales, sorry, improving our margin, reducing our cost of sales. So just in the last, and I will share this in the screen so you don't have to read this in too much detail, but I will share it in the group a little bit later because I appreciate it might not be the easiest thing to read. But I just sort of like reflect on the boxes there for you. And there's what we've put into these boxes here, just some questions that can sort of provoke your thoughts. But I think if I sort of give you my sort of thoughts, really, with the value proposition, we're looking at what problem you're trying to solve for your customers. What's the unique value that you deliver that differentiates you from your competitors? How does your product or your service benefit your customers in a tangible way? And I guess, do they have any unmet needs or pain points that your offering addresses? I think then when you move down a box into your key activities, you're saying, okay, well, what essential activities do we perform to deliver our value proposition? What's the most important activities that we have to do that drives customer engagement and satisfaction? Can we think about how we manage and optimize our operations, our production, and our service delivery? And is there anything that's critical for us achieving our business goals? Then we come a bit further down, which are key resources, and I'm thinking, well, what's our critical resources that we have? Are they, as I alluded to earlier, physical, intellectual, human, or financial resources? And are we operating them effectively? What resources are essential to maintaining the value proposition that we want to take out to market and the customer relationships? And how do we scale these resources as the demand grows? As I mentioned earlier, the key partners are external. So I'd be asking myself the questions such as, who are my most important partners and suppliers? Am I reliant on one? So one of the biggest dangers in business is the danger of the number one, having one key customer, but particularly in this case, having one key partner. As we found with a lot of businesses going through COVID or Brexit, they were reliant on one supplier to get their goods into the country or to get around the country, and therefore they got impacted by COVID. So what was the impact to their business of only having that one supplier? Is they couldn't then deliver their promise. Thinking about how that partnership works. So does it enhance your value proposition or your operations, or save you money, or share the costs, etc.? And are you able to build even stronger strategic partnerships? I touched upon the key systems earlier, but again, what technology platforms or systems that you're running within your business? Is it your CRM business, CRM, which is quite fundamental to most businesses? Do you have systems or processes within the organization that drives your activities and your customer relationships? Cost structure, as I said, can we keep that lean as possible? But how do your fixed costs and your variable costs affect your profitability of your business? Can you minimize those costs? I'm sure already you've looked at your fixed costs, the bits that sit below that gross profit value. I'm sure you did that yourself, or you went through that with Goopy to keep that as lean as possible, to keep that break even as small as possible. Because again, once we can keep our break even low, we can then profit we can make over our margin just sits then onto our bottom line. but also reviewing our activities and resources and say, okay, well, which are the um, most expensive resources that we need to keep an eye on in terms of our activities and resources. And then right at the bottom, we've got our revenue streams. So again, I talk to particularly the students when I'm going through the scale up program is, what are your primary ways to generate revenue? Do you have different revenue coming from your different customer segments? But importantly, have you got an additional revenue stream that you can look for? So it's very often we say, okay, we've got a primary way of making money. Is there a second way that we could make revenue for our business? And how reliant and how steady can that be? So can we have some sort of reoccurring revenue model? Then we got our pricing model, and I touched upon that again. That'll be a piece that we'll be doing with you when you're looking at your business model tools booklet. Customer relationships, I'd say customer relationships are going to change, but what type of relationship do you have with your customer? Is it a personalized relationship? You've got a one-to-one sort of sales or account management type relationship, or is it an automated or a self-service type relationship? How do you build that trust and loyalty with your customers? What strategies are you going to use to engage and retain your customers? And how do you make sure that at every touch point you're exceeding their expectations and also continually building that relationship? Customer segments I've touched on a couple of times, so I won't talk too much about there, but we really want to think about, what's the needs, behaviors, and demographics of our audiences, and what is it that is they're looking for as a solution in terms of their pain, problem, fear, want, need, or desire. And I always encourage to think about the demographics so we can sort of define our customer segments, but then go down into the persona level. So, for example, I'm in Oxfordshire, so a lot of businesses in Oxfordshire are trying to sell into the tech sector. So, okay, I'm trying to sell into the tech sector. If I'm trying to sell into the tech sector, who's my most likely decision maker, or the person with the purse strings? Is it the CEO? Is it the CTO? Is it this CEO? And can I profile with a persona that buyer? So, are they likely to be of a particular sex, a particular age? Have they got particular interests? Because if we can identify that in our avatars and within our customer segments, we can be really, really powerful in our marketing. Because if we know that they're more likely to read the Telegraph versus reading the Sun, or they're more likely to read X over Y, we can even write our copy in that type of style so that engages with that reader. And as I touched upon earlier, your marketing channels in terms of thinking about the different ways that you can reach out to get your customers to pull towards you with interest.